Welcome back to my channel. If you like these videos, don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe for more of this content. So today we're doing a part 2 of why I ghosted my parents. And if you remember in the last video, I talked about how cutting off ties with toxic family members may be the best decision you would ever make in your life. Not only so you could triumph in your goals, and you could stop looking at your existence as this bleak, dark shadow of madness, and you can learn how to thrive on your own and trust yourself. So, with that being all said, I did not mention some of the harshest things my mom has said to me, and I think something stuck to me for forever. I mean, it still sticks to me now. And it's when she told me that she would get over me in 3 days if I died. And the way this conversation went was me asking my mom, what would she do if I died? And I was 7 years old and I was curious to see what her reaction would be. And I think it was because I saw a movie and I saw how the mom reacted in the movie. And I don't know if it was the Macaulay Culkin movie. I don't even know, but I know it was a movie where a child had passed away and the mom was just distraught, right? So I asked my mom and she literally said, I would get over you in 3 days. Those are the harshest things a child could ever hear their parents say. And that's when it clicked for me that the relationship I had with my mom wasn't a relationship at all. It was very much like what I could do for her by existing, whether it was giving her papers, being an anchor baby, or how she could exploit me in order to, I don't know, make money, or I don't know, stick it to my real father for being a total deadbeat. And I remember once she got really sick, and I think it was like something about her ovaries. I don't know what it was, but she was going through something. And when she got out of the hospital, I remember I was like at a friend's house and I was downloading music, and this was when I think it was Napster was pretty prevalent. I remember the mom of this friend that I was hanging out at, that day she asked, how my mom was doing. And I was like, I don't know. And she's like, well, didn't your mom get out of the hospital today? And I remember saying, well, I kind of wish she didn't. She's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, wish she just died. And it reminds me so much of the book by, I want to say her name is Jenny McCartney, something like that. I'm glad my mom died. And I think that at that age, I already felt like there would be a relief if she wasn't around, because of how badly she treated me. She made me feel so unaccepted. Like I was worthless as a girl. I wasn't smart enough for her. And so some people don't know this about me, but I do have dyscalculia. And it does affect me more in math than it does in, like dyslexia, like in reading. But sometimes it could kind of transfer into that and flip-flop. But math has always been my biggest problem. And so because of that, my mom always looked at me like I was stupid and a nuisance because I couldn't just understand simple math. Well, she didn't care to understand my learning style, and she was also a horrible teacher. She would just like make me feel terrible, would not take the time to teach me. And when my stepdad would teach me, it would work sometimes, but he just couldn't get through to me when it came to understanding certain things about math, like algebra or whatever else. decimals, all this other stuff. So as far as like academics, I wasn't very academic. So I think that, so I got my period when I was around 9 years old, and your hormones are all over the place. I'm trying to understand what my position is in life, like who I am. I'm going through these changes. I'm being told I'm not a girl, like, you know, not yet. Let me not get copywritten. So let me stop. I'm being told that I'm not yet a woman, and that I'm kind of in this weird limbo, and I'm being treated like an adult, but at the same time undermined constantly. And I just wasn't, honestly, I was like the most invisible person in the room, even though most of the negative commentary and the negative energy was geared towards me, because I was the only one in the house. I was raised as the only child. And so, like I mentioned before, she definitely had a thing for making me feel terrible for the way I looked, whether it was my nose or my skin color or my hair texture. And I mean, it got to the point where even with my first loves, she would tell me, like, this guy would never love you because you're not, Eurocentric. You're not Eurocentric enough. So he's never going to love you. And just things like that really made me feel like, what is her problem? Why can't somebody just like me and it not be about race or culture or anything? And she was always kind of holding that over my head for me to be insecure about. Which was interesting because it kind of translated in my dating life too, because I would date people that had these weird biases, and I realized it's very much engraved in Latin culture, which is super sad. I'm telling you, racism in Latin culture is super duper real. They like to hide it. They like to make it as though it's not there. But even within our communities, it's super bad. So, I talked to you guys about meeting my dad and how my father, after I met him, 3 times, I didn't really continue talking to him much, because he kind of fit the stereotypical deadbeat dad. And it just, he couldn't change my mind. And every time he would get online, like he would try to find me online, all he would say is like, how are you? And I'm like, hi. And he's like, I am your father. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you want? And I say his name. And he'd be like, why don't you call me your father? Call me dad. Call me dad. And then the conversation would just turn into that for 10 minutes. And I'm like, dude, I'm not about to call you dad. Like, I'm not even arguing with you. Let's just have a conversation about literally anything else. And it would just never go anywhere. So, like I said, that relationship just never went anywhere, because it was all about how he wanted me to perceive him and his ego. And I want to say the last time I actually saw him and sat down and like had food with him, he literally wanted to criticize my mom the whole entire time. And I was just like, and this was like when I was around 16 or 17, and I was just not interested at all, because I already knew what kind of person my mom was. I was trying to see if he cared enough to get to know me, and it didn't seem like that was the case. He was still hung up on that relationship with my mom, and I just was so uninterested. Y'all, it was a waste of my time. I could have been at home, like literally watching, I don't know, El Cuerpo del Deseo or Pasión de Gavilanes or something more entertaining. 12 Corazones on Telemundo. But then, after those interactions, my mom was always like, see, he's a loser. He's a deadbeat. And I'm like, girl, you don't have to tell me. I already know. And I think that at times she always wanted to prop herself up as like the best parent because she was there, but she wasn't really there. Like, she wasn't really emotionally there. She was so cold and had such a rigid, stagnant kind of personality. And it never got better. It never got better. And the hypocrisy grew and grew and grew. I think the last time I actually had a conversation with my mom was I was at her house picking up my teenager, and at the time he was really young. He had to be like maybe like 10 years old. And I know that because of the apartment. I remember distinctly the apartment that she was living in. She was watching something on TV, and it was this beautiful black woman who has the who had the really kinky, curly, tight, super tight fro. But it looked so moisturized and so pillowy soft, like so pretty. It was like that perfect microphone fro. You know what I'm talking about? And I remember my mom sitting there, rocking on her chair, saying, I'm prettier than her, and my hair's better than her. And I looked at my mom and was like, no, sweetheart, you're lighter than her, and you think you're prettier than her. And secondly, her hair is actually moisturized, and it looks really good. Yours looks like it's falling apart, and it's dry at the ends. You straighten that woman's hair, and it's probably past her bra strap. Like, girl, you're kidding yourself. And she's like, no, but my hair is better than it. I'm like, your hair is not better. She's like, yeah, but my hair is straighter. And I'm like, first of all, your hair is straighter because you're using horrible chemicals to straighten your hair. And I'm telling you this, y'all, because I used to perm my hair, and then I started using keratin treatment. But my hair had that, it was like a big, it was tighter than Diana Ross's, and like, you know, it would go in. And so I don't know if it's low porosity, high porosity. All I know is that it was tight. Like, for me to comb it, it was not easy. And when I would put a relaxer in my hair, I would have to leave it on my hair for at least 45 minutes. So I know for a fact that my hair was tighter, like the hair she didn't like. And that's why she chose to like get my hair straightened at such a young age. But it was just these little things that would always make me go, I just can't deal with you. I just can't. Your personality is just, ugh. And then it got worse, obviously, after I had my son. Like, she would like get in cahoots with my child's father to, I don't know, bring me down. And I'm like, what's the point? Like, if it's that serious, you guys should date each other. This is weird. There were so many things. Like, I remember leaving money at my mom's house in a safe, like a little piggy bank thing that I would put money in there. And I had a very nice amount of money for when I came back, like to visit my child, because I was living in a different state at the time. Then I could spend the money on him and splurge, and I don't have to think too much about money. And I come home and there's only $200 left. I was like, ma'am, I could have got myself an apartment. I could have literally got myself, you know, a down payment on a nice little car, something decent. What? It's gotten to the point where my own teenager will not tell her when he has money because she will absolutely take it. Man, there's just like a list of things that my mom would do to just like invade my privacy. from reading my diaries to exposing the things I write on there. Oh man, there's just so many things, and I don't want to like bring them up because they're just in the past. But the fact that my mom always painted me to be an ultra abusive person, when she in fact was the one who was like ultra racist, ultra like, I don't know, man. She just didn't like other people of different religions. Like if you weren't Christian, you were evil, you know? And it was just, it would make me so sad because it really stunted my ability to make friends and have great conversations. Like I really believe that a lot of people have a hard time making friends now because of their narcissistic parents and how badly they've ruined the ability of their child to develop in a socialized way. Like it's just, that's what I really truly feel. You know, it's been years since I talked to my mom, and I still think about how I wish that we had talked, but just the sound of her voice makes my ears bleed. Like, I know it sounds crazy, but just the sound of her voice, I literally cannot take it. And it's crazy because like the way she used to feel about me as a child, it's turned around and it's me who feels that about her. Like, I don't want to hear her laugh. I don't want to hear her cry. I don't want to see her crack a smile. I don't want to see her frown. I don't want to see any emotion. I want her to be a robot, just like how I was. Only I don't try to get into her space to even bother to even feel that way. So the healing journey, I had to go through a lot of not only therapy, but I had to do a lot of self-improvement because I am a deep thinker. So I would ask people like, what would you say is messed up about me, or what you don't like about me, or what you would change about me? And I would just listen and accept people's criticism, whether it was critical or, you know, kind of nice. I would listen, and I started digging, like, where does that come from? Why am I like this? And why do I care? Right? And I realized the reason I cared was because I did not want to live the life that my mom lived. I did not want to mirror that. I did not want to experience the life that she lived, or the life that she lives rather. And I don't want to, you know, have a facade up all the time. My mom used to always, you know, criticize me for being emo and emotional and having kind of like dark arts, you know, listening to Linkin Park, Eminem. I was definitely bumping the cleaning out my closet song, and she would side-eye me. But when you look at her Facebook, or when you look at her social media sites, they quite literally are just profile pic after profile pic after, I mean, dozens and dozens of profile pics of a depressed woman in the rain, a depressed woman in the rain, a depressed woman with an umbrella and it's raining and it's dark outside, a depressed woman silhouette dark with rain falling and like a blurry, you know, a blurry highway. Like it's weird. It is so freaking weird. And listen, maybe she has trauma. Actually, I know she has trauma she has to deal with. But because she refuses to deal with it, she's pushed everyone away. So back to me, the healing part. I have not only done that introspective work, but I also took the time to really like read things and listen to other people's experiences. So I can not only validate that I'm not freaking crazy, but so I can also understand her. And what I do understand is like she just has unresolved trauma that if she doesn't solve, this is how she's going to stay. And there's nothing I can do about it. I can't save her. That's one of the things, but also getting in relationships with people that can understand my trauma and letting go of control. Like, I I was super angry and controlling. I wasn't as violent as Krishan Rock, but I would say I had a very like toxic way of like handling my emotions. I would get extremely angry and irrational, but I never like challenged a guy physically. Maybe when I was like in junior high or something, but as a young adult, no. I really, maybe once, I don't know, but I really wanted a better life for myself, and I knew that being controlling was absolutely never going to work for me, because I know what a controlling life did to me, and it sucked. It sucked being constantly controlled and being treated like I should be a robot. So I think the turning point for me, and I do remember this distinctively, I remember I lost my cellular phone, and in my cell phone, you know, it's life. And at that time, I think this was like around 2000 and I want to say it's 2014, 2015. I had lost my cell phone somewhere. Or maybe 2012, I'm not sure. But I remember like I lost my cell phone and it had all this information on it. And it had some really crucial, like no girl would want to lose that cell phone and the numbers that were in there, okay? And personal stuff. And I lost my phone and I was flipping the fuck out. And then out of nowhere, I got this clarity. And it was like, fuck it. If I lost it, there's nothing I could do. I was irresponsible. I lost my freaking phone. And this is what I get for smoking a bunch of weed and then probably drinking and then going to the store and not paying attention to what I was doing and leaving my phone. And when I did that, it was like an instant relief. I felt it was like nothing I had ever experienced before. I was like, I just stopped being controlling. I stopped trying to control the situation. I stopped trying to not take accountability for the fact that I was being irresponsible. And man, that was such a good feeling. Like I could still remember that day. It was so, so good. It was so good to not care. And I think it also was so good to not give a fuck about a cell phone. It was so nice to not look down at a damn phone all day. Because it was like phone was life. 2 days later, one of my friends returns my phone. They're like, hey, I went to that bank and I got you your phone back. Because I remember telling them, because I had called them from a different phone, like, hey, I left my phone at the bank, da 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 da. So they apparently got my freaking phone. Or maybe my phone was in their damn car and they just were like, this girl's crazy. I'm just going to tell her it's at the bank where she said it was, because otherwise she's gonna, I don't know. I was really that kind of angry person. So if I wasn't right, it was like, fuck, you know. And he returned my phone and I was just like, wow. I kind of felt a little sad that I got my phone back. I know it's kind of weird, but I got my phone back, and I think that's the day, I know that there was no point in being angry. There was so much more things to be angry about, and it wasn't a freaking phone. Yeah, just leave the control behind, girl or guy. Just leave it. There's things that you can control. Yeah, handle those things. But the things that you can't control, like when things have spun out of control, instead of trying to control it and get crazy and angry, your tears, your anger does not solve any problems. And that's what I learned from being raised by a narcissistic, angry mom. And last but not least, my mom had like acute Munchausen syndrome, which is like when you're constantly telling your child they're sick. So my mom was always telling me I was sick. If it wasn't a mental issue, it was a health issue, it was something. Something was always an issue with me. And she was always trying to medicate it with some type of medicine or, you know, send me to a doctor. She was always trying to like send me somewhere to get help. And this whole time, she's the one who's needed the help. Because when I look at her now, she does not look like she's okay. She does not look like she's okay, and she needs help. I really do believe my mom kind of didn't develop her personality well. She kind of flew by her looks and her body and her figure when she was younger. But now as an older woman, you know, now the disparity is she has no personality. She's just like a stone cold wall of anger and depression. And I really wish that she would have taken the time to listen to the people around her that weren't all churchy to develop her personality and become more conscious. So now she's just like some crazy conspiracy theorist enthusiast who like obsesses over the newest end of the world trend. So I'm just like, okay, I can't live in fear. I lived in fear for so long living under her roof that I cannot live like that anymore. So a big part of the ghosting is the fear mongering. So yeah, the fear mongering, I couldn't do it anymore. And yeah, that's part 2 of why I ghosted my parents. It sucks I can't really talk about my dad because he's just not there. And as far as my stepdad, I kind of had to ghost. He goes along with her. I had to ghost him by default. But he wasn't really a protector for me. But he was the kind of person that did try to understand me a little bit. But after a while, he started developing, or kind of like, since he was losing his personality, he was attaching his personality to hers, and he just kind of started losing himself. So by default, I had to ghost him, which sucks because he was a decent stepdad. He was decent, you know? By decent, 1 through 10, I would say like a 4 or a 5. Not terrible. I guess when I was little, it was more like a 6 or 7. And then as I got older, it just kind of dissipated. So yeah, if you're struggling with this, just know that being controlling, living in fear because you're being fear-mongered about your future, fear-mongered about the world's future, or you're mentally trapped because of all the things that was said, all the things she said running through your head. Yeah, like if you're going through that, number one, with the little things that you do control that you feel like you get way too out of whack about, like you freak out way too much for, and you see yourself losing your cool when it's unnecessary, start with the little things. And then start finding refuge in the person that you want to be and the person you wanted to protect you from a person like them. So you have to develop that person for yourself, because that will help you not only love yourself more, but trust yourself more and feel safe enough to rest and not try to prove to somebody that doesn't really like you anything. It frustrates me when people say, oh, you gotta forgive. Yeah, I forgive for myself. I don't forgive for them or for her. I forgive for me. And people like to say also, like, you know, it says in the Bible, you gotta honor your father and mother. I'm like, yeah, but it also says in the Bible that, you know, do not lead your children to wrath, because they will walk away from the word of the Lord. Because essentially what they're saying, you know, lead by example. They're not saying you can't make your child mad. They're just saying if they're mad and it's rightfully so that they're mad, like it makes sense why they're mad, and you're claiming to be this religious person and you cannot rectify that, you cannot show that this is wrong and accountability and be forthcoming with what it is you're doing and why you're doing it, then you're losing a child. And if you're losing your child and you brought them up in the world of the Lord, then the Lord is also losing that child. So it's just, you know, I'm not letting that religion stuff tie me down either. I feel like at this point, when God comes, if it happens, if it doesn't, but if he comes or she comes or they come, whatever, there's only two things you can do. You can either dig a hole so far into the ground that you don't want to be seen, or you can raise your hands up into the sky to be taken away. So yeah, that's all I have for this video. It was pretty long, but I hope you liked it. If you want to know more about why I ghosted my family or my parents or anybody else, just hit me in the comments. All right? Thanks. Bye.